Well, it's hard to imagine that I'm actually stood on what was the stage of the Return Club. I'm at Northbridge Leisure Centre in what is could only really described as a horrible concrete box of a room. But between 1989 and 1991 there was something called the Return Club, which I ran with one or two others. It was like a music cooperative that put on live music in Halifax in this space. Remarkably, we used to promote sometimes twice a week, which it's hard to think that people would actually turn out for gigs as often as that these days. We did it for 2 years here, and then ultimately we kind of had a fallout, which I'll come back to, with the Leisure Centre, which is owned by the council, and moved temporarily down to the Trades Club in Hebden Bridge, and then we ended up moving to a pub off the town centre, which also is no longer there. But we went for the 2 years of 89-91 were definitely our kind of the busiest, our heyday, I suppose, if you like, of the Return Club. And we used to generally put stuff on a Friday night, but say sometimes on a Wednesday as well. And in that time we attracted quite a number of bands who ultimately went on to either be quite successful, in one instance very successful in those years. So we had a band called the Mock Turtles played, who ended up on the charts for sale. Bands around kind of what was kind of called the Manchester baggy period. In particular, one night we had a band called Paris Angels, who were kind of from that Manchester baggy kind of era. And they came over and they brought a coach load of what you could only describe as proper Manx from Salford. And there was no end of trouble kind of all night, so we were just a really lively bunch for the folks who came with them. And that was kind of our last show here, was in part because of them, because the following day at the Leisure Centre there's a chess tournament being taking place, and using giant chess pieces. And I got a call on Saturday morning from the Leisure Centre, from the manager, complaining that half the chess pieces had gone missing and had been stopped. The coach load from Manchester had been stopped on going over on the way back, and sure enough all these giant chess pieces were all on board this coach going back with them. And there was also lots of things about the drugs, and I also remember the manager saying we found drugs the size of a golf ball in the toilets, and we were kind of thinking, what kind of drugs the size of a golf ball? But anyway, that was kind of our downfall from it, and we had to move on from there. But the band, probably the biggest band we had in terms of future success, was played here with Pulp. I say quite remarkable, I think, that they played here in 91, which was probably about a year and a bit before they actually kind of broke. About 2 years down the line, 2 or 3 years, we were headlining Glastonbury. They played here, and I can just remember it. We played the busiest night we ever had here. So we had a smallish stage, and I just remember that on either side of the speakers somebody was having to hold on to them because the floor was just bouncing. And Jarvis was typical Jarvis, really. He managed to turn this room, even though it's a concrete box, into kind of another world, and songs of stars and such like. And then ultimately we got them back, but another outside venue. But I'll tell you more about that later in the story. But they played here, and I looked back through the books, and I think we paid them the whacking total of £170.